Hey everybody, welcome back to another CAD video, and we're here in collaboration with Sharkey from the Colorado Cantina Crew. Sharkey, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing fantastic, man. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Just got back from vacation in Europe, and I'm just happy to be back in the States, preparing for another PQ, and talking about CAD, man.
Yeah, speaking of vacation, what is this? What is this shenanigans?
I mean, I'm seeing Cad Bane here drinking, I don't know, some cocktail from the underworld and relaxing at the lake. Where is he at?
He has found a way to be grumpy at the Lake Country. Yeah, let's talk about lake. Let's talk about Cad Lake Country.
Yeah, this is crazy. I think this is where kind of Cat is heading in this direction. This is what we're kind of working with together. And I think it has a lot to do with, of course, this metagame. Right now we have Kira, who's dominating, Sabine, ECL. We've seen some Data Vault Sabine as well. We got Han Solo. We see a little bit of yellow, but mostly it's Han Green with a lot of pilot action. So what do you think about this so far?
I do think that it is driving the at least departure from Tarkintown to the vacation house. So it is something to be aware of and is an interesting way to combat the extra health that well, everybody but Sabine on this list is running, but even then there's still some Sabine data vaults running around. So this looks like a pretty good representation of, I would say, the big three in the meta right now, and so we have to find ways to combat them.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. I think you have to find a ways to adjust. And I want to actually touch a little bit about like rising leaders too. We've also seen Ray Data
Hmm.
Vault take down some PQs. I took a one PQ recently and like definitely showing up a lot in tournaments. We got
It's a good deck.
It's a great deck. Hantu, my buddy teammate Kodamarin just took down a PQ with it. And Crispy did really well as well in
Yeah, he did.
Richmond. Then we have Darth Vader, Vader 4. That's popping up too. So, we got to watch out for these guys as well. Well, just because Cad Bane is on vacation, it does not mean that I don't care about Tarkintown. We
Nope,
still
doesn't mean you
love
can ignore your
Tarkintown.
responsibilities at home.
Exactly. So this is like my current list right now, and I'm really advocating for now. There are two of them to come back into the fold, and the big reason why is just you got to do broken stuff, right? You got to be unfair. That's like my big premise right now. If these decks that are going long, I want to end games quick. You don't have that much time because of your 25 health base. And you got to play unfair. You got to do unfair things in order to catch up.
Be unfair, be fast, and in this case, yeah, this looks very, very similar to mine. I'm a little greedier with the surprise strikes, but otherwise it's pretty much the same as mine right now as well. I do think that either now there are two of them or sneak attack should be a part of the attack plan. Both of them buy you points into various matchups in the metagame that we'll cover in a little bit.
Yeah, and you know what? I don't know why when I'm deck building, I always seem to struggle with now there are two of them and surprise strike, and I'm having trouble fitting them both because you
Yeah.
want to fit enough trick packages, and that's three tricks right there, and that takes three slots that I otherwise would have used on surprise strike.
Yep. Yep. That's fair.
Tough. Well, Cad's going on vacation. Please, man, educate us. Tell us what's going on with this and why.
Yeah. Well, if you do me a favor, yeah, show me this slide. Obviously, Lake Country is bigger than Tarkintown. Uh, very clear, like scientific slide here. So one of the things that I was initially skeptical of is that Tarkintown has a very big tempo play for you, and it felt almost like a security blanket after having played it for I don't know how long has Cad Bane been released now. Probably
6 months,
close to a
maybe.
year at this point.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Um, and so Tarkintown's been my security blanket, and I'm like really tough. I found it really tough to give it up. One of the things that actually ultimately got me to try it out is Raid the Roach is a particularly good CAD player as well. Shout out to Raid who got me finally convinced to try. Like I've been intending to try Lake Country out for a while, but I finally did it, and it actually surprised me how much that 9 health changes your mid to late game. And I mean that in the you're not as easily put into check to where you're playing such hard control that you have to get the exact right answers when you're right at 20 health. 20 health on Lake Country means you still have 14 remaining to stabilize the board and push back. Whereas Tarkintown, you're pretty much staring down the barrel of a gun. So that's the real reason to try it out, at least if you haven't. And I have found some pretty good success with it personally.
Yeah, when we talked about it, I was skeptical as well. When it comes to Tarkintown, just because it's like a security blanket or a crutch, and you kind of feel like, what are you doing without it? Can you catch up? Can you, I had this like fear of, can I still maintain board control without it? But now I kind of changed the mindset of, hey, you know what? Maybe I have more life, so I'm gonna get into the late game, which my cards, my bigger cards will come out, and I'll maintain board control at that time.
Yeah, it's exactly where I've seen most of the effect as well. So as we just said, it buys an extra turn or two against aggro, which can be really helpful in the Sabine ECL matchups. You're not quite as dominant early game, but you're also a lot more secure in the oh crap, they actually got me to 17 by the time Sabine died, so now I'm just dead. That doesn't quite happen as much with Lake Country. The opportunity cost isn't as high as I expected it to be. We only played what, if I remember the list from 4 slides ago, we have like 3 red cards total in the whole deck if you include the sideboard. And then later games, because you get extra turns, you can utilize Cad as a leader more. So otherwise, it's basically 90% the same deck.
Yeah, and I want to. You bring up a good point. I had my buddy Daniel Mephisto. He brought up the point of, okay, if you're playing almost a similar amount of cards, why not play Cad yellow, and now you can play cunning. My argument for that, against that, even though it's like 9 health more, is I find myself, using cunning more defensively, because
Yeah.
you don't have the Tarkintown, so you're not like maintaining the board control. And more often than not, I feel like I'm doing exhaust 2 and bounce, instead of doing like +4 and then exhaust.
Yep, I found it very similar. I found very similar results when I also tried. And that was my first question too. Why not just run yellow at 30? Because at this point, it does change the complexity, not complexity, complete changes the complexion of the deck enough that you are playing a pretty different style with the yellow one, which can still be good. I'm not trying to take away from that one, but I found that Lake Country fits my playstyle a little better.
Agreed. Let's talk about these substitutes. We talked a little bit about like it being 90% similar. What are
Yep.
something that you saw here?
So in this case, the red cards that I have found myself using the most are Devastator, Ruthless Raider, and Cham lately. And while there's no direct replacement for Cham, I've found that you can kind of still keep a board clean and similar with some of the ambush package. The Devastator and Radiant are actually pretty close approximations of each other, whereas Radiant is actually really good into control as well. And then while the Lurking Tie Phantom does not have as much raw power as the Ruthless Raider, it is something that I think I had some extra slots for now because the Raider was taken out. And so those are the main, what I would consider to be substitutions for each other, is to take out the red cards to make all yellow and not double yellow, I guess.
Yeah, and
So
I think even then, I think still the most important card here against control is Lurking Tie. I still think that's his
I agree.
card.
I think Lurking Tie, while not a silver bullet like it used to be, can still help run the meta answers, especially if they're paying 5 for no glory against your 3-drop ship.
Yeah, and then if they still can't deal with that, you can put a Boba Pilot on it,
Hmm.
even more
Push a
lethal. I
bunch of
think.
damage.
Yeah, I think the only thing we got to watch out for is traitorous. But even if they're spending 5 just to take my Phantom, you can still run
Yeah,
it.
and I've got a few considerations for that later at the end as well that may not be reflected in the deck list yet, but it's something I'm still considering for testing. So,
All right, let's talk about these strategic objects.
yep,
I love the trick package.
the trick package is a tried and true, well established tactic of Cad Bane's decks that have been around since, I mean, I think all of those are Spark of Rebellion cards, are they not? Like
Yeah,
those those all work together really well and they have for a very long time. So we know what we get with those. Some of the other options I've been testing out is more of an ambush style package because you are giving up the Tarkintown. Cloud Rider can kind of approximate that as well. It doesn't really build a board like you're trying to do, but it can come in and smash something that otherwise may have survived because you no longer have Tarkintown. Syndicate Lackeys is another similar option at a later part of the game. Come in and deal effectively 6 damage if you include Cad Bane. So I think these are two routes that you probably don't have room in the deck to run both. At least not that I have found a configuration that works, but you can pretty much run one direction or the other, and I think have a good, effective, strategic option for you to pick from.
Yeah, and I also think with the ambush package, you have a lot of health static units right now.
Yeah,
So if you don't, without Tarkintown, that's why I'm really high on Cloud Riders. You're gonna need Cloud Rider can potentially be anywhere from 4 to 5 damage, and then plus the cat,
yeah,
either when it's a leader or when it's flipped. And then Syndicate Lackey, same thing. That's 6 damage, or it could be 7 damage depending on if Cad's out.
yep, yep. That's true. Those are all good considerations for this one.
All right, talk about your favorite card. Your favorite card on the left.
Favorite card is Sneak Attack. I have been I'm reminding myself how much I like Sneak Attack. I ran it a lot, obviously, last set, right? And sometimes you get away from the things you tried out earlier on just because, like, oh, there's new toys. I'm back on Sneak Attack, and I have been an absolute massive fan of just finishing a game with Cad Bane, and I mean that with the unit. There are other Sneak Attack targets in the deck still. In fact, I've won a game by sneak attacking a Cartel Spacer once. But like it's a very versatile card that gets brought up by Jabba and gets discounted by Jabba if you really want to go that far, that can close a game before someone else can take control of it. The other option is now your favorite card recently, so why don't you talk to us about Now There Are Two?
Yeah, I'm just really big on cheating resources. And I mean, effectively, this is like a ramp card as well for you,
Yeah,
right? And so, how do we beat other ramp decks like Han 2, for example, who's cheating out? Even though he's giving 2 damage there to units to get it out earlier, how can you combat that? And I think that's where you go with Now There Are Two of them. Also, a trick. Um, I think it's still explosive to get a turn two or turn yeah a turn two 5 costs, and you'll see later in my list like I'm very full on 5 costs on five
yeah.
drops, making sure you're able to hit. But not only that though, I think a long time ago you and I talked about, you know what, you don't have to do that. You can just really wait until you can unturn your 5 resources to go ahead and put a Cad Bane 7 drop out there.
Yep. Yep, that's one of my favorites as well, and that's another reason I'm not writing. I'm not personally writing off Now There Are Two of them. I'm running Sneak Attack lately. I think it's tough to run both right now, but there's a part of me that's gonna run Now There Are Two of them between now and Minneapolis next week as well. That
Yeah, and
there's a non-zero chance switch back over to it.
not to mention though, we were watching the stream the other day, right? Don't you remember there was someone who did like unrefusable offer
Oh,
plus
I know. I found out who it was too, actually.
you did?
Yeah, it was a great play. I love unrefusable offer.
Yeah. And then the chat exploded. I go, Sharky's super proud right now.
Oh yeah, that's another one of mine that, interestingly enough, is missing from my current list, but it might make a comeback.
It'll
It's
find
just
its
not in
way.
the current testing list.
All right, let's talk about this extra spice. When I heard this from you, I was like, wait a second, you want
You
to
got to
run
be kidding
what?
me.
Yeah, yeah. I'm very anti, you know me, I'm very anti like it needs to be underworld. Like when people
Yeah,
are like always talking about budget options, which I get it. Sometimes some of these units are expensive. Like Boba unit is still, a pricey card, and I go, what can I run to replace it? And people always go, oh, I want the 3/5 bounty hunter. What's his name? The
oh,
one
the
that
yeah,
that can
Toro.
what's which one?
You want Toro, right? Toro Calican.
Toro. Yeah, they're like, oh,
Yeah.
I just run a Toro, and I go, no, man, it's not an underworld, and I'm
It's
really
not
big on that
Underworld.
underworld synergy.
Yeah. Um, well, to get the easy spice out of the way, the Syndicate Lackeys, like we talked about earlier, isn't super spicy, but it is a card that has fallen out of favor with Cad Bane. But I think bringing him back could be beneficial to a lot of lists. Let's get with the real spicy ones, though. Gorilla Soldier and Radiant 7. You'll notice that neither of them are Underworld. However, both of them bring in heavy doses of indirect damage on the turn that they come in. Um, so the original thought was both of those are good into relatively empty boards, which is a control deck's intent, right? They don't want there to be much on the board in the first place. So dropping a Gorilla Soldier on turn two against Bosk Blue or sometimes even Kira will effectively net you 5 damage in some cases. Radiant Seven's another one of those finishers where once they have super laser blasted and cleared the board, you can sneak attack for a total of 10 damage, or you can drop a radiant and do 5 and then have a big ship waiting for them for next turn. So those are the original ideas of as to why to play these. And it turns out in testing there's a few more applications. You can actually push damage pretty dang fast with the Gorilla Soldiers. They're a lot better than I expected them to be, even into some of the aggro games. They're not amazing, they're not silver bullets, but they're still good. They can help you get control of a board where the opponent has to make a tough decision to either destroy their own unit or let you have 2 ready units. So if you have Crafty on turn 1 and a Gorilla Soldier on turn 2, suddenly you can attack for 4 points of damage to the board that they have. So it's not quite Tarkintown, but it can still help control a board in a similar fashion to what Tarkintown was able to do.
No, absolutely. I just wish it was Underworld because then you could, more
That'd
clunky.
be way too good, wouldn't it? Oh, I'd love that.
Yeah, one day, one day. All right,
Underworld Guerrilla Soldiers.
extra
All right, back to
spice,
you. What do you got now?
extra spice. I am very, very, very high on Fennec right now. Always loved it from set two. It's just a really important stat line. It's always been. This is why I love Ruthless Raider, right? Is
Yep,
a
yep.
4/6 body dodges takedown, dodges fell, and with one of my biggest fears right now, I think are just those green heroism decks, the ones that have
The big
loot.
grindy ones. Yep.
They want to get you to the late game, and this right here, Fennec you know, can really take down a lot of units. This is like my silver bullet against Quinlan is like having 2 of these in the sideboard to have my late drop, my Cad Bane bomb, 5/6 copy.
Yep. Yep. I'm a big fan of Fennec too, so I'm with you on this one.
Yeah. Used
The
to
next one
have.
I might not agree with you on, but
Oh, I know, I know. All right.
this is an interesting one. Talk to me.
I am cutting crafty. I am on no crafty list right now. I am on full Cloud Rider, and here's why. And people are like, "What? Crafty's great, survives." I know some people are going to say, "Well, isn't that a great way to guarantee that you can do now there are 2 of them?" All valid, for sure. My thought process with Lake Country is, I need those. I need the power. I need the power to take down units, and I want to go late game. I have the health to do it, and so I figured, one of my favorite plays was having Crafty, protecting Crafty, and then to the turn, like when you have like against like Quinlan or those X5 decks, I'm able to have Crafty to trade into the X5 and then use Tarkintown to get an X5 off the board. Now that you don't have Tarkintown, I just feel like maintain board control and then go to the late game.
Yep, that's a totally fair point. I'm not sure I can give up my crafty crutch just yet, but it is something I do intend to test out someday when
Hey,
we get
if
time, right?
you are able to play, you know, a Gorilla Soldier, I think you can get off Crafty.
Yeah, maybe we'll see.
Or you keep Crafty and those Gorilla Soldiers become Cloud Riders, and then you're good to go.
Yeah, well, maybe that's not a bad idea either. What else we got on the last one though?
Enfys, tell me about that.
So Enfys is an interesting one. Especially I think actually now that I think about it more, Enfys probably is better in an Now There Are Two of Them deck than she would be otherwise. Um, but the ambush effect is very strong. There have been at least 2 times that I can recall in testing where Amphis comes down and actually just knocks out Kira, like doesn't care, because the Kira was trying to shadow my Cad Bane flip, and so I'd flip Cad Bane waiting for Kira to come out, and then I'd Enfys Nest Kira, and suddenly I have a relatively large Enfys Nest also on the board, and there's no overwhelming barrage coming to take me out.
Yeah,
Um, I've found that sometimes at 6 though, Enfys can be a little much, but if you can find a way to cheat Enfys out early, that can get out of hand very quickly.
yeah. Let this survive.
Yeah. So if you go your Cloud Rider route, and then on round 2 you pull out a Gorilla Soldier, maybe not Gorilla Soldier, System Underworld, but pull out an Underworld anything. Pick your Boba, right? And then you do your Now There Are Two of Them on the next turn. Suddenly you've got Enfys on the field, and against most resource 4 options, that's a scary body to have. Plus the next ambusher you bring out, which could be Forlom, which could be uh, Bosk,
Bosk, yeah.
you're looking at a survival rate that's much higher than it would otherwise be.
Yep, love it.
So I'm a fan of the Emphas plays. I just don't know if it's going to make sense without now there are two of them.
Well, here's my list that I've been tinkering with a lot. Back on now, there are two of them.
Yep.
You can see here that I kind of did fit a little bit of the surprise strikes and some relentless pursuits. Um, and then I have Fenic in here. So this is kind of like wanting to go a lot late game. Um, I unfortunately to fit all this, I had to shave some houndstooth this hunter, but
Yep.
I'm thinking
Shave the
this
space a
hunters
bit.
are going to be pretty important.
Yeah, I think in this case it probably will be too, because you're running a little low on early plays, but your early plays are intended to control the board anyway. And I think it looks good, but there's probably some times where you're gonna have either Mist Hunter bail you out or now there are two of them bail you out of a tough
Yeah,
situation.
yeah. I'm trying your unrefusable offer tech,
Yeah.
which and then you got the sneak attacks and the radiant. So that's version one that I have here.
hmm
Version two is just straight, the crutch of trick package, right? You got Jabba, you got Bamboozle, you got shoot first. I'm actually trying to do a little bit more of a shoot first because it used to be a sneak attack
Yeah.
to have a one up there, but trying to shoot first to see how that works out.
That seems totally fair to me, and I like in this case I like the inclusion of the extra Bosk too, just because the events are real nice, especially when they're free. So you
Yes.
can get Bosk out there, then you can shoot first with Jabba and do two extra damage if you get Bosk to stick. So
Yep. And now we're talking about yours.
yeah, mine is sort of in between a few things right now. There's a lot of testing still left to go. This is the current configuration that I'm running. I am personally having trouble dropping Surprise Strike down below 3 because there are times where early game I'm like, I really want it, and there's certain matchups like Sabine where I absolutely want it. Um, but in the 3 allows me to resource one of them early and pretty much take a flyer on finding one later. The other interesting thing that I have found, at least for this list, is I'm back up on 3 Guerrilla Soldiers for the moment, but they may drop back down to 2 if I need slots for something else. I'm trying a relatively light space package here, but the sneak attacks are probably my favorite include in this one, especially with Java, because you can sneak attack Cad Bane really early to
Yeah.
help clear a board if you really need to.
And you have a lot of late game. Like post board, you're gonna have
Yep. Yep.
seven drops.
Post board is a lot heavier usually, and I do that into the control decks because you're kind of fighting them. Most of your early game isn't about pushing damage; it's about getting something to stick so you can get the next few things to stick. Which is a weird way to put it, but that's kind of what I found to be the best. Just keep flooding the board until they run out of one-to-one removal, or until you can stick two things, and then they have a lot harder time to determine what to destroy when. And so when you start making them make the bad decisions like that, you can flood them with bigger and more things eventually. So you have your protection from your powers of the dark side with your Greedo out there, and then you can also drop a Radiant 7 on them.
Yeah,
But
yeah. And
that's
then you
the
get to a point too
intent.
where you can stop resourcing, and so you have two things on the board.
Yep.
I've always advocate this: two things on the board at all times. They answer it, play another two things, and you just kind of keep going until they kind of run out of
Just
answers.
keep pushing damage, and eventually, like a lot of them. So, for example, Kira tends to be a tougher matchup. I won't lie. I won't pretend it's good now. But the ways that I've been able to beat Kira have been to have something on the board and push enough damage during the 5, 6, 7, maybe even 8 resource turns that you can kind of put them in what is effectively check and is literally check with the sneak attack. So. There's a lot of times that they will come around to being right about stable by the time I'm able to sneak attack a Cad Bane for the last 7 damage that I need. Um, that has been a consistently good way for me to beat most of the bigger Kiras at least.
Yeah, definitely. And you have Shadow's Intention, which I have not yet been on board with it because I just haven't tested it, but I just haven't gotten to the point of actually executing that perfectly.
It's not a silver bullet. Some people will treat it as one, but it does help draw more answers out. So if you can put that on Cad Leader, for example, he's a lot harder to remove than someone just, and they have to delay their super laser blast too. If you have a Shadowed Intentions and a Lurking Tie on the field, they can't just super laser blast and wipe the field. So you have at least more options and more time to push some damage with those. It doesn't buy you much, but it usually buys you a turn or two with a unit that you put it on.
Awesome. Well, thanks, buddy. I think this was
Absolutely,
a
man.
great video.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me
Um,
on.
I I'm just excited to hear what you all think. Please comment below and let us know if we think we're crazy for being on vacation right now in this lake country. But I just test it. Don't knock it till you try it. We'll put some Sweetie Bee links in the description so you guys can check it
Absolutely, man.
out. All right, buddy. Appreciate you. I will catch everyone next time.